Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, the show where we help coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders build businesses that create massive impact. I'm Adam Roach, alongside my incredible co-host,
Jess Weber, and we're here today to bring you the best strategies, mindset shifts, and real-life success stories to help you level up in your coaching journey.
Whether you're launching your coaching business, scaling to 6 or 7 figures, or just looking for inspiration to push through, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're bringing you expert insights, real talk, and actionable items every single episode. So if you're ready to take your coaching game to the next level,
then let's dive on in. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the I Love Coaching podcast. I'm your host, Adam Roach, with co-host
Jess Weber. Hello, Adam. How are you today?
Hey, Jess. I'm well today. It is post-Easter, and Dana and I just got back from Kentucky, a whirlwind trip to Kentucky. She does that usually once a month, where she goes and she visits her offices. And we went to Keeneland, which is a horse track. They run 2 meets, a spring and a fall one. We went to a Tyler Childers concert. We went to a Good Friday church service. We went to an Easter church service, and now we're back in Charleston. What about you?
It sounds like a whirlwind. Ours was a little bit more low key because I have a 4-year-old who's recovering from a double stack of viruses that he picked up. So it's been a party. But you know what? I was very grateful for the time to spend with my family and just, appreciate everything that there is about the Easter season in a very intimate and low-key way, which honestly is how I like to operate, because I always feel like business has a million things happening, go, go, go. And when we can kind of take time and just be us, it makes me really happy. Good. But I wanted to check on you because I know that today actually is a big day for you, and just wanted to see how things were sitting.
Well, today is, for those that have listened to us and know my story, today is the 6th anniversary of my father's passing. And how am I doing? I mean, blessed, I'll tell you that, because I mean, without sounding too rose-colored glasses Pollyanna here, losing my father was the hardest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's just be real. When you lose a parent, when you lose that figure in your life, I mean, my father was a coach. If you know the story, he was an Olympic swim coach, and I got to see my dad be a coach to many amazing world-class athletes, and then also be dad, right? Though he traveled a lot. He was on the road to swim meets, to international events. I thought it was always so cool because when he wasn't home, I'd walk down our hallway in our house. We didn't have a very big house, but that's where we put all the pictures in this hallway. And there was magazine covers with my dad on it. And I was like, oh, look at that one. Oh, look at that one. Oh, look at that one. I always thought that was so cool. Though I say that I feel blessed because without my father's passing, Jess, we wouldn't have this community that we have. We wouldn't have the I Love Coaching community. We wouldn't have this vision statement that I received at a time when we called internally here the beach chair moment, that I wouldn't have had that beach chair moment, because without my father's passing, none of that would have truly happened. So today I want to talk about, Jess, there was an amazing message yesterday at Seacoast. Seacoast is my local church here. And if you're ever in Charleston, or if you're ever in Mount Pleasant, first of all, Jess, this is a very neat city to be in when it's Easter time, because it's known as the Holy City, right? So the Holy City, I'm not going to go into the history of why it's called the Holy City, though at the end of it, for the most part, all the religions that are here celebrate Easter. So if you're ever downtown Charleston, you get to hear all the church bells all the time. It's really, really cool. So Dana and I were traveling yesterday, and we were traveling back, and we listened to our local church here called Seacoast, and they had an amazing message about Easter. And I'm going to go into a little bit of the message, and I want to relate it to my father's passing. And I know that your father passed as well a few years ago. And I want to talk about the message that they shared yesterday, because it's so powerful. It's so impactful when we take a step back and we look. So the message, and I'll give the way paraphrased message here, was you got to keep your head up, right? You have to look up, actually, was the real message. You have to look up, because the story that they were sharing from Scripture, when the ladies walked to go prepare Jesus's body after he had been crucified, and they walked into the tomb, they had their herbs with them and their spices with them to prepare his body. And they were looking down the entire time. Right, this is the message that they preached yesterday. And they were looking down. And as they were looking down and they walk into the tomb, they didn't realize, because their heads were down, that the body wasn't even there, right? The body wasn't there until they finally looked up and didn't see that Jesus' body gone. And it wasn't then until they felt him come back that they had to look up to see where he was. So the message was keeping your head up, always looking up. And so as I bring that just back to where I sit today, 6 years later, removed from my father's passing, there are many times I want to keep my head down.
Yeah.
Right? There are many. I can remember the phone call, getting the phone call, because we knew that he was going to pass. We just didn't know when. And I have this neat picture that Dana took of me giving him a hug, the last hug, and getting the phone call. And it was on Easter. It was on Easter 2019. And of course, we all know that Easter is the biggest celebration up in heaven, because that's Jesus has risen, right? And so they're having a massive party up there. And so we jokingly said in our family that that's why my dad decided to pass, or that's why God decided to take him on Easter, so he'd go up there and party with the best of them. And so we just can choose to keep our head down during times like that. And sometimes that's the best thing to do, is keep your head down, because without me keeping my head down, the beach chair moment wouldn't have happened. The idea for I Love Coaching in the community wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have felt inspired by my dad at his funeral, doing his eulogy and seeing the impact that he had for me to create and establish and find this community called I Love Coaching. So there's many things to unpack there, Jess. That was a very long intro.
No, but I appreciate
discussing.
Yeah.
Discussing.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing it. And yes, you're exactly right, because you shared my dad passed 2 years before yours. He passed in 2017. So I've gone through kind of a different but a similar, relatable story and journey of having to learn how to balance what the world tells you of keep your head down. But they say that just for a lack of distractions, but also you have to be aware of where you're going. And so I think there's value in this conversation, whether you're looking at it from a faith-based religious standpoint, or just generally in a behavior and awareness standpoint of understanding, one, where you are, but two, where you need to be going, and keeping tabs on that. And being okay with being present where you are and grounded, and also knowing that there's things coming up that are going to change your life. And so I think having an awareness of that what's in front of you thing is an incredible conversation to have. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm glad I get to share. Though at the end of the day, it's not easy, Jess. When your father passed, it's not easy. When my father passed, it's not easy. So if we're looking at it from a death perspective, I'm not saying that it's not easy. Though at the end of the day, it's how are you taking that situation? And if we go back to Seacoast, by the way, go to seacoast.org. I'm sure it is. I don't even know the website. Though Seacoast, just type in Seacoast in the Googles and Mount Pleasant and pull up yesterday's service. You'll get to hear Pastor Josh Surratt really do what I just butchered there, with some serious approach to it. Because again, keeping your head up, Jess, looking up and keeping your head up is so important to do, even in a mourning state, right? In a mourning state, yes, you have to grieve. In a moment of pain, of fear, of unknowns, without, again, sounding Pollyanna, you've got to really keep your head up. And while I sat on that beach chair, so this is probably, maybe post-funeral, 2019, post-funeral of maybe like 2 days or 3 days. Came back to Charleston. The beach chair moment goes like this. Emily was still at home. I've always been drawn to the ocean my entire life. Yep. And that's just kind of my safe place. And so I grabbed a beach chair. And I told the family I needed some time. And so I went to the beach. It was probably like 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a beautiful day here in Charleston, and grabbed the Bible, grabbed a journal, grabbed some sunscreen for my bald head, grabbed some water and some music. I grabbed a speaker, actually. So I don't recall listening to any music. And I sat there and I cried and I prayed and I watched, I listened, and I don't know if I kept my head up that time, though I do remember looking out from my beach chair, just looking out. No, I don't recall a single thing around me. I honestly don't. And then when I calmed myself down, I'd pick up my journal and I would just start writing, right? I would just start writing. Whatever I felt at that time, I would write. because I had written this really long thing for my dad and I was able to speak it at his funeral. And so I felt a little exhaustion from that standpoint, though as I sat there, I just wrote and I wrote. And then I felt some creativity come in. So I would write down some creative stuff. And then I would feel the need to pick up the Bible and read a little bit. Though as a good Catholic boy growing up, I didn't read the Bible, so I didn't really know what I was supposed to be looking for. But I had been taught a little bit, so I started reading some scripture. And that's when I would put everything down, Jess, and I just started praying. And I say conversation with God, but Dana always says you're praying. And I was like, well, I think I was having a conversation. And so anyway, it's kind of funny. And then I started to hear certain things coming back to me. And so I'd write those down. I'd hear some more things and I'd write those down. And then I'd just start journaling from the things that I heard. And I'd always been taught in my Christian religion side. I say that jokingly because I was raised Catholic in Indiana, and then I was deemed an honorary Jewish boy in Beverly Hills. And just this is a family oriented program. I just told him not to recircumcise me again. And then I went to the South and I became a good Christian. And so I was always taught though that if you think you're hearing God, you're supposed to take that language, that message, and lean it up against Scripture, because Scripture is the Word of God, right? And so as I'm hearing these things and as I'm starting to write them down and then journal through them, gosh, I kept hearing the same message over and over and over. And that's how the coaching community was created, right? It was surround yourself with different people, not better people, not bigger people, not stronger, different. I kept hearing different. People that you could continue to lead, but something bigger. And I kept hearing a number. And that's how we are where we are now today, Jess, is from that beach chair moment, really getting to look out, really getting to sit and listen, really getting to be present at that moment in time. And this went on actually for 4 days, right? This did go on for 4 days. And each day, actually, not each day, but just one of the days, Jess, this is a silly side of the story. Right behind me on Sullivan's Island is an amazing barbecue place called Home Team Barbecue. And one day after it, I thought, gosh, I've smelt it all day. I went and bought myself a rack of ribs, a full rack, Jess, a full rack of ribs. Went back to my house. I was there now alone, and I ate the whole rack of ribs. And I'm pretty sure I fell asleep because I was in a food coma. And I kept having things come to me. So anyway, that's the beach chair moment. And I share that simply because it really helped me think, as I know now, the language of sitting and listening and being quiet and looking out and looking up, right? Not keeping my head down, but really, really focusing on up.
Yeah. I love that story because I mean, I hear a couple of things, but I think there's value in it from, a listener standpoint of understanding that you didn't shy away from grief. You didn't hide your emotions, but you sat with them, you processed them, but you didn't wallow and stay in them, which I think is a very valuable thing to do, especially when something traumatic happens. Because, for me, my dad's passing was sudden and unexpected. We actually thought we were going to lose my mom 9 months previous because she was in the ICU waiting on a liver transplant. And fortunately enough, she received the transplant and she was in the process of recovering when my dad died of a pulmonary embolism. And so it's one of those things where I could have been grief-stricken. I could have been angry at the world. I could have shut down, but I, just like you, took the time to kind of process it and figure out where I was supposed to go next. And I think that's a lesson that everybody can take, whether it's, a traumatic death or just a sudden change in life, right? There's value in sitting with the change, processing the change, and figuring out where you need to go with it. And so, I don't ever wish people to experience the grief that we've experienced, and yet we know that that's part of life and it's a natural thing. But change happens inevitably, no matter what it is. And so, you and I were sharing even this morning, I've got some, medical stuff that's going on with my son and with myself and all of that could be very traumatic, could cause depression or anxiety. And yet I actively choose to not, I consciously object is the way that I like to put it. I actively choose not to be depressed or anxious over it because I can't control those things. I can control how I react and I can control my actions and my behavior moving forward. And so that's why, circling back to your message in the beginning, looking up and looking out is so valuable because I could have my head down and just be upset and angry and emotional. And I'm allowed to have those emotions, but I can't stay with them because they're not going to benefit anybody else in my world or myself in the long term. And so I love your beach chair moment. I appreciate your story. And I think there's just a lot to be learned from that process and looking up.
It's interesting. The feeling that I felt, and I love going back and reading through some of those journal entries from that time, is I kept describing the feeling of a circle, right? Having a circle meaning it was my family, my siblings, and there was a completed circle. And then with my father's passing, from my journaling, I used the language that there was a piece of the circle now missing, right? And that it felt this incompleteness of that circle. And what's neat about it now, reflecting on it, is the community, the I Love Coaching community, was birthed out of that beach chair moment, which was birthed from me being at my father's funeral and seeing the impact he had had on so many people. And this is a true story. So as I'm sitting up there, actually, I think I have this on YouTube, Jess, and I might make it public. We might be able to talk about this. So I have my reading that I'm doing to my dad, for my dad, that I wrote at his funeral. And what was really neat about it, so my father and I were pretty competitive on a lot of things. And being Indiana boys, we were always competitive in basketball. And my father used to have this saying that he would always say, which we use sometimes in the community, Jess, of amateur versus professional.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'll never forget, I was playing a college tennis match now, which is amateur. And I walk up the court and he's like, good match, son, good match. And he said, not bad for an amateur. And then I remember trying to play some professional tennis, and he saw that match too. And now I'm trying to win some money here, and I get off the court, and I'm pretty sure I lost that because I was not a very good professional tennis player. And he said, yeah, not bad, son, not bad for an amateur. And so I'm at his funeral looking at all the incredible people that he had impacted. And the last part of my speech for him was, Dad, you did good. You did really good. You did really good. I'm thinking about all the people's lives that he had changed. And I said, but not bad for an amateur. And though I think about that and that circle and what the I Love Coaching community has done now, because I get to tell the story about how it was birthed every day to possible incoming coaches into the community. And so that missing link there is almost feeling like it's never going to be closed. But it has now a little stopgap, if you will. It has a little piece that gets to go in there, and that's the community. Because every day I get to talk about my dad. Every day I get to share that he may not be on this earth any longer. Every day I walk home from the gym, I talk to him out loud. So every day I get to share how the I Love Coaching community came about, is that he's right there, right? He's right there. So that earthly circle may not be complete, but I can feel from an energy standpoint that the community is now a placeholder of where he once was in an emotional standpoint for me. So it's a really, really neat feeling that I get to experience every single day.
I love that. To me, the language is almost like it bridges the gap. So the gap isn't gone with the loss of your dad. Like you said, there's a replacement or a bridge of energy that helps fill that for you. And I think that is so valuable. And I think you're hitting a topic that we've hashed on a lot, but at the same time, I think is a valuable one, is finding a community that can help you through things like this. I think is immensely valuable as well, because like you said, you have your circle, that's your core, family unit, or the, significant other, the people that you surround yourself with. But when things happen, you need more people. We were created as social beings in a society, in a community. And so I love the language of that community providing you energy, because sometimes you don't feel like you have it. And sometimes you can't find it internally when you're feeling all the things and you're sitting with it or you're processing it. So that finding people that are alike and have the similar interests or similar goals or whatever in a communal sense can help, carry that burden. There's a, sermon that has stuck with me since I heard it probably as a preteen, if not an early teenager. Farmers yoking oxen together for the same reason is, if you put one ox to a plow, they can only plow so much, right? In a day in a field. But if you yoke two together, they can exponentially process more of the field. You yoke four together, they can exponentially do more than the two, because the yoke helps bear the burden of the load of carrying the plow. And it's the same thing. You find your community, you find your people, and they can help bear the burdens. They can help you process the emotions. They can feed you the energy when you don't have it by yourself. So I love that.
Yeah, that's really, really good language. I believe, Jess, that people don't starve for content anymore.
No.
I really don't, because, here's the thing. Are we in an information age? I don't think so anymore, because I think that we are there's so much information readily available. I mean, with the Chat GPTs of the world, with the Gronk 3s of the world, which we've done podcasts on, you can go get information literally at the snap of a finger. Mm-hmm. I believe what I saw at my dad's funeral was 200, 300 plus people that he had helped create connection with. Right? They all were connected, whether it was through swimming, whether it was through athletics, whether it was through his coaching. He had built connection. And so I don't believe that people are thirsty for content right now. I believe that people are thirsty for connection. I really do. And I believe that the community that we've created has now allowed this connection. And what I was saying in my past story, as I'm sitting up there saying goodbye to my father one more time, and then reflecting on that in my beach chair moment, I thought, wow, that was an incredible room of 200 to 300 people that he had impacted. And part of the language that I kept hearing was 100 million. And I didn't know what that meant. And we know now, and I, again, lovingly compete with my father, even though he's no longer here. I tell him two things all the time when I'm walking home, that when he passed in his 60s, I did tell him this before he died, that I was going to far exceed and beat him in my time here on earth compared to his. And now, secondly, is that 100 million approach, because our vision statement for the I Love Coaching community is to empower coaches, Jess. So that's our job, is to empower them. And to empower them to do what? To change and serve. Those words are not just Google-based words. These are true words. Mm-hmm. These are true words in the general sense of, again, witnessing what my father did for the people that showed up to his funeral. He changed their lives. He served them.
Yeah.
And so go back to empower coaches to change and serve. So it's the coach's job to go change and serve 100 million people through our Real Coach method. And that Real Coach method being our blueprint and our community. Mm-hmm. And so it's not content that people are really wanting right now. It is the connection. And that connection now has been created through the community. And that community is now we're empowering them to go change and serve 100 million people. I mean, Jess, right after this podcast recording, I get to have another international call with a coach. I don't even know where he's from. Hold on, I can tell you. He is whatever the 52 country code is. That's where this call is going to be happening. And so our outreach, Dad, I know you're listening. You had people there from like the United States. We have people from like Canada, UK, New Zealand, wherever 52 is. Yeah, Jess is looking it up. We're beating you,
Mexico.
Dad. We're beating you. Where's 5? Mexico. Great. So we will have all of North America and Central America too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, like I said, there's the language you said of we're not in an information age, we're in a connection age, I think is just kind of the nice bow on top of this conversation of, part of looking up instead of looking down is finding the people to connect with that help you move your goals forward, that help you support you when you are feeling burdened, and I think that's such an incredible message to kind of leave listeners with, is find the right connections for you, because that's going to be the catalyst for you to find success in whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. And go find connections that align with your core values. And go find connections that support you in an upward facing way, right? Don't be the smartest person in this room of connection. Go in there and be the person that has to look up to all the people in the room, right? Go join that type of community. If you're in the coaching space, or if you've ever thought about being a coach, or if you've ever thought about, wow, the space that I'm in right now, I'm either burned out or I'm bored or whatever, and you have value to add, you can coach your past, right? You can coach what you've learned in the past. And I'm going to give a great plug here, not even a shameless plug, because I don't care about it being shameful, because I'm going to plug it all day long. The I Love Coaching community is going to hit the vision, right? We're going to achieve that vision. We are going to change 100 million people through this simple process. Why? Because that number was given to me. It's not a number that I just arbitrarily pulled out of my wherever. This is something that in that beach chair moment, this came to me in a still, quiet space. So when people ask me, Adam, 100 million, boy, that's a really big goal. Is it? I don't know, because God gave me that number, right? That's where that number came from, and I believe he's a little bit bigger thinker than all of us probably combined. So if he says that that's what the number is, that's where I'm sprinting toward, Jess.
Yep. Well, yep. I think this was an awesome conversation. Thank you again for sharing, because I know 6 years feels like a lifetime ago, and it feels like it was yesterday, all in the same bundle. And so thank you for being real and authentic with where you are with that, because I think having those conversations only helps other people who may be, closer to that feeling or that a life event that has triggered something in them. So I appreciate it.
Truly my pleasure. Well, thank you all for listening today, and we will be back at the next podcast. So download this and share it and comment and tell us what you think about it. And
join our newsletter if you haven't already at ilovecoachingco.com. It's the place to get all of our content and join the conversation.
That's right. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. See you next time. See you. Bye.